So welcome to Intentional Parenting. I'm really excited to have everyone on this journey today. It's definitely going to be an exciting one and a transformative one. I'm going to start by introducing myself. A lot of you know me, and I know a lot of you, and I know your children very well, actually. Those of you who don't know me, my name is Nancy Amar. I'm a pediatric occupational therapist, and I've been working with children for the past 16 years. It's been such a wonderful journey for me, and I've learned so much from children because I've always seen them as, as little teachers. So I bring this journey to you and how it applies to parenting. And I really hope for all of us that this is really a wonderful learning experience and one where we transform ourselves as parents and as caretakers for our children. So let's run through a little bit of how the course is going to go. You will be receiving a video every Monday, and then every 2 weeks on Wednesdays we will be having a group call, a group conference call. So the content of the course is being recorded as we go along because I really want to be able to mold the course according to your needs. So the more questions you ask me, the more comments that you send me, the better I will be equipped to answer your questions. My goal is really for us to make a true change and a true shift. So the more input you give me, the more I'll be able to do that for you. And then throughout the course, you know that I am available to you always, that you have my phone number, and you also have my email address. Please feel free to send me any questions, any comments. You can always refer to your welcome email with your welcome packet if you have any questions. And again, we're here to really serve you. I'm here to serve my families. So we're going to get started with the first lesson. When we talk about intentional parenting, what we want to look at first is always the mindset that I want to have when I enter the role of parenting. That's the first thing we always want to look at, right? Really be in the moment and enter. So to understand a little bit more on how the parenting approach has changed, we want to look a little bit at the past, how we grew up, for instance, right? So it used to be that parenting was very linear. There was power at the top, and then the children would listen to what the parents asked of them, right? So there was that hierarchical type of parenting. Nowadays, we're looking at more circular type of parenting, right? Where there's more of a relationship with the children and with the parents. And I find that what happens is that a lot of parents are having a really hard time with implementing that kind of approach and then incorporating it with what they want, the discipline or the order in the home, right? There's almost like a gray zone that ends up happening a lot of times where parents don't really know how to create certain boundaries because we want to be friendly, but at the same time we're creating this dynamic that just doesn't work in the home. So that's usually the challenge with this more conscious type approach of parenting, because conscious parenting does not mean that we say yes to absolutely everything that our children are asking us. Quite the contrary, right? So it's just a very different way of approaching parenting where you're really putting a lot more emphasis on the relationship you have with the child rather than on you having to police every single behavior. Okay, so it used to be that we had that very linear approach, and now we're entering this more circular approach. And what I'm going to challenge you to do, and this is really the core of this program, Intentional Parenting, is really to have a huge paradigm shift in terms of your parenting. And the paradigm shift is this. Parenting is no longer what we thought it was in terms of us trying to get our children to do the right thing and mold them into the adults we want them to become. But rather, the paradigm shift in terms of parenting that I want you to really look at is that you are actually the one being parented, which sounds odd, I know that, but this is how we want to look at it. The relationship that you're creating with your child right now is really an opportunity for you to look inside every single moment and start questioning your own beliefs. This is what parenting is about. This is on a spiritual level also. This is exactly what parenting is about. right? It's really about you becoming more aware of which parts of you need to be integrated, right? Which ones, we always look to, it's natural that we all want to always be whole, right? There's a wholeness that we want. And so parenting is an external way of you becoming more aware of what areas within yourself need more of that integration. And I know that it's very hard for us to wrap our brains around it, but trust me when I say this, if you're able to shift that way, this is the hardest part. If you're able to take this journey, and it's a courageous one, and enter the parenting journey in that sense where everything that happens with your child, any interaction, anything that triggers you, starts to make you think, go inside a little bit and start thinking, where is this coming from? What are my beliefs? What are my values? Right? If you can start looking into that and seeing how certain things are triggering you and where they may have been something that you need to own up to because your own upbringing, this is the most beautiful parenting journey that you can have for you and for your child. So when we look at parenting, the paradigm shift that we want to look at is that your child is the one calling you into your own expansion. And what I mean by that is this. Your child, when a child comes to this world, they're pure. They just got here, and they got here from heaven. I always tell myself, like, they just got here. Their truth, this is what they represent. They represent complete truth. And then when they enter here, they enter into our families, and then they enter into our world. And so we end up molding them by the interactions that we have with our children. But if we can look at our children as children that are going to be calling you towards, questioning yourself, questioning your values, then we are truly looking at them as, these little people that are actually calling you towards your own expansion. And it's something that we really want to honor, because why else are we in this world together? Why do we choose each other as parents and children to be together if not for that, right? It's really for our true and own expansion. So when we look at parenting our children, the one thing that I ask parents all the time, what do you want? What do you really want for your children? And no one ever says, I want them to have a career, I want them to be successful. It's very rare to have those kind of answers. I always get answers like, I want them to be happy. I want my child to be happy. I want them to be the best version of themselves, right? Those are usually the things that I hear. So when we enter the parenting journey, if that's truly what we want for our children, it has to come with us really rolling up our sleeves and looking at parenting as a way of, how am I going to teach my child to become the highest version of themselves, right? So every opportunity that comes up is really an opportunity for that expansion to happen, both on your end and on your child's end. Now, what I challenge you to look at is really to make a completely new paradigm shift. And the paradigm shift I want you to look at is, it may not really be just us parenting our children, but rather our children are parenting us. So by that I mean that your child is the one calling you towards your own expansion. And your child is the one who makes you question your beliefs, makes you question your values. This is what I mean by they are parenting you. There's a by-parenting that's happening, right? We're parenting them on a certain level, but they're parenting us as well. And what they're doing is that they're bringing up to consciousness certain areas in your life that need to be integrated, right? So it's almost like they are calling you to begin parenting your own inner child. So when a child comes into your life and things happen on a daily basis, anything that happens and that, the interactions that you have with your child, these are opportunities and these are moments for you to become more clear, more aware, and more focused on what are your beliefs, what are your values, what are you bringing to the table? Why do I believe this? Why do I value this? Where is this coming from? Is this the belief that I want to keep? Or is it one that I've had by default from my own upbringing, right? This is what a child brings us, right? This is why I say that the shift has to be to look at the child as the one parenting you, right? Because your child is the one who's going to bring up to the surface the need for you to start questioning your own beliefs and not just parenting by default. Because what's happening is that when parents are parenting by default, we just go ahead and we reproduce and the same wounds that we had as children, right? It's just a cycle that just continues and continues. So it's so much more difficult to enter the parenting journey from this paradigm of you questioning yourself, of you questioning your values, of you searching inside for what this child is triggering within you, for what this child is making you question. This is a much more difficult journey to enter than to parent by default and not even think about what we're doing and not being conscious of our choices, of how we answer children, why we do what we do, right? So it's a big challenge, and it's one that it might take a while to wrap your brain around, but I really want you to listen to it from your heart, and try to push a little bit past your comfort zone. And these videos, this course is really going to be a lot about that, a lot about questioning your own belief system and doing things a little bit differently, right? Because what I want from this kind of approach is we're not going to put a band-aid on things. This is not about how do I discipline my child so that my child behaves. This is not it. This is a whole different level. How do I parent my child? How do I show up? Why am I in this parenting journey? Why is my child in my parenting journey? Why are we here together? Why is it so difficult to parent this child and not my other child? Right? These are all things that I want you to look at. And so we're not here to put band-aids. This is not a course about, reward charts and stickers. This is not it. There are going to be strategies that I am going to teach you on how to make this a little bit more simple to implement in a home. But we're going under this. We got to really look under and look at what is really the parenting journey and why am I here? Why are we in each other's lives, right? And what do I want for my child? I always question that, right? Even as a therapist, when I work with children and that I have to, learn to manage behaviors, in the classroom, teachers ask me for certain things. How do I manage a behavior? This and that. I always want to look at the big picture because I never want to stop a child from being authentically who they are, right? So always look at the big picture. What do I want my child to learn? What do I want my child to become? So the goal of parenting really is not so much how do I maintain order in my home and how do I get my child to listen to me, but rather the goal of parenting is how do I get my child to learn to self-parent, right? How do I get my child to look inside themselves and know that they have the answers as well, right? And children learn by example, and that's something that I'm going to repeat to you over and over again. They don't learn from words. They really learn by example. So if you can enter your own parenting journey, and look within, the more calm you can remain on the inside and the more grounded you can remain on the inside, that speaks volumes to a child without any words. But that speaks volumes to a child, and they will learn by example how to do that as well. So the parenting journey is definitely one of self-reflection, right? It has nothing to do with your children. I say this to parents all the time. It has nothing to do with your child. If you want to change something that's happening with your child, you don't change the child. You actually have to change you. And then what's being reflected to you will change, okay? And I know that it's hard for some parents to wrap their brains around this because, it's easy to say, well, he's being a brat. How could it be that it's it's me? How could this be? But it is about you. There is something within you that needs to change. Just like when you have a mirror, you look in a mirror and you don't like what you see, it would be foolish for us to change the mirror, right? So that you get a nicer reflection. You have to change yourself so that the reflection changes. It's the exact same thing with children. When you don't like what you see with your children, it's not about changing them. It's about looking within yourself to see what you need to be changing within you so that that reflection changes as well. So the beauty about doing this kind of work is that when you can parent from a place of inner peace and you can parent from a place of inner knowing, because you've done your own inner search and inner questioning, then you don't need parenting books. You don't need self-help books, because the inner calm and inner compass that you have is all that you'll need, because you will know on your own how to find that inner truth. So that's beautiful. I mean, and it's a tough journey. It is one, and it's a courageous journey, but you gotta look inside. There's no other way around it. There's really no other way around it. It's not with, patching things up and knowing how to talk to your child, use these words, use those words, use this chart, use that chart. That's just patching things, right? That's not really looking at the big picture. And we want this to be a beautiful journey for, for both you and for the children. So it's such a wonderful opportunity to look inside, and your child is calling you. Your child is calling you to your own expansion. And I think it's important for us to honor that. I want us to look at the important components of conscious parenting. The first thing you really want to look at is to parent your child from the as-is moment. Really in the moment. If you can be in the moment at all times, which is very difficult because it's not at all times that we're going to do it, but bring up that awareness, start becoming more conscious of it. When we can parent from the as-is moment, what you see in the moment, not later, not tomorrow, not after tomorrow, right? It's not because your child, for example, is having a tantrum and you're thinking, oh my God, that's it, the whole entire evening is going to be ruined. So you get even more frustrated and you act a certain way with the child, or you try to nip it in the bud, and so then you try to quieten him down and you say, let him get whatever he wants. I don't want to have a bad evening, right? So when you're doing that, you're actually parenting from the future. You're not looking at what this child needs in the moment, right? So that's why I say work with the as-is moment, what you're seeing right now. Be present in that moment. That is the most authentic way of parenting. And then when you're able to parent from that as-is moment, then you can become the parent that your child needs, right? You can become the parent that your child needs you to be, and not the parent that you think you have to be, or that you would love to become, or the parent that you are to your other child. That's not it. It's really in the as-is moment, right? You're parenting from the child's needs. You become the parent that this child needs you to be. When you can parent your child from the as-is moment, you want to always ask yourself, what is the big picture? What do I want my child to learn, right? So sometimes when we let them get away with certain things because we don't want to have to deal with it, then you're not really teaching them the big life lesson that you want them to learn. And this is a time to do it. This is a time for them to be able to test, to be able to make mistakes, because now, when they're young especially, the consequences are not very big. So we want to allow them to to really try things, to really make mistakes, to really test boundaries. Parenting is a huge, huge journey, and coming to this world is also a new journey of discovering who you are, discovering what your preferences are, discovering your family, discovering you. I mean, it's a huge piece of discovery, and so we have to honor that your child is also on a journey, right? And that we're on this journey together, and it's really just being in that moment together and taking the next step forward. That's what we really want to look at, rather than start thinking about what tomorrow is going to be like, and after tomorrow, and who they're going to become, and what kind of career will they have. This is noise. This is all noise that's really taking you away from the focus of being present and being in the moment with your child. I am actually thinking about a book that I read a little while back by Eckhart Tolle. And he said something really beautiful. He said, the only moment we have is the present moment. All other moments don't exist. The past are present moments that passed. The future are future present moments that are going to be. right? So the really truth, the only truth that we have is what we experience right now and in the moment. So the mom that you are, the dad that you are, is who you are today. It's not who you're going to be tomorrow, or when everything goes right, when the family is great, then I'm gonna be this great parent. It's not that. The choices you make today, right now, of how you show up, how you present yourself, how you are with your child, this is the mom that you are creating, you know, for the future. So, and it's very powerful to think about it that way. The only moment we have is really this as is moment. So if we could be conscious of that, we can really parent from a place of what you see right now, right? And what my child needs from me. And what I really want them to learn, to become this, you know, best version of themselves. What do I want? How can I help them go into that journey? How could I help them evolve into that person? Another thing that we want to really, you know, think about is that we're not perfect. This is not something that you are going to be able to do absolutely every single day. You know, it's, again, it's a relationship. There's things that happen. There's going to be ups and downs. But the more aware you can become of your presence, your approach as a parent, the more of a shift that can happen, and then it becomes a lot more second nature. And yes, there will be bad days, and that's okay. Again, it's about being okay about it. It's not the end of the world, right? It's also part of the journey, and also have a sense of humor about it, right? I think having a sense of humor, especially when it comes to parenting, is probably the best thing that you could do for yourself. Parenting is so much fun, you know? It's such an adventure on both ends. There's things that are gonna come up that are really far from perfect. And, you know, learn to have a sense of humor about it, and try to see life the way that our children see it. You know, I spend so much time with children, and I think the one thing that I have and that I'm so blessed to have is to be able to laugh with them, and, you know, and look at their silliness and the things they share and the wonder of the world that they have, and really look at it the way that they look at it. I think that if we can continue seeing the world like that, the blessing is all ours, actually, right? So have a sense of humor. There's a lot of things that would run so much more smoothly if we could just laugh about it. So when we talk about intentional parenting, what we want to really look at are three main components. We're going to be looking at the self, we're going to be looking at the relationship, and we're going to be looking at the environment. So, and we're going to delve into those three pieces in the next 6 weeks. So the importance of looking at these three pieces, and not just giving you, like I said, I'm not just giving you charts and rewards and, you know, little things like that to implement in your home, because at the end of the day, those are just band-aids. They don't go underneath, they're short-lived. How many times I've heard over and over and over again that parents do these reward charts and it doesn't work. It ends up backfiring. Right now, this child wants everything for a reward. We know that, we see that. That's because we're not going underneath and really addressing what we need to address. Why did this child come into your life? Why are you in this child's life? What is this about? Why is this child not in someone else's life? Right? What are you calling each other to? You're calling him or her to his expansion, and that child is calling you to your own expansion. So if we're gonna be in these relationships, you know, let's do what we need to do. This is what we're here for. So now, you know, like I said, every 2 weeks we're gonna explore a different piece of these three components, so that we can then, after we look at the self and the relationship, we're then gonna look into, like I said, the environment, and I will give you some strategies that you can implement in the home, you know, things about consequences and rules, and those important things that need to be there, but they cannot be there if we haven't addressed the other two components first. So for the next couple of weeks, we're going to delve into the self, we're gonna delve into the relationship with your child, and things that you need to question yourself about. But then on the last 2 weeks, we will look into the environment, which is gonna be the piece that people wanna call discipline. I rather call it self-discipline, right? Because at the end of the day, what we want is to teach our children to self-parent, and not to for you to parent them and police them, and that when you're not around, they're not parenting themselves, or they don't know, you know, right from wrong, or they don't know what the best choice is for themselves. We really want them to, you know, gain those tools to be able to self-parent even when we're not around. So for this week, your call to action is as follows, and I will send it in a written email as well. I want you to look at what is your parenting style, right? Where does it fall in terms of this linear versus this circular, more conscious approach of of parenting? I also want you to explore a little bit the paradigm shift that we spoke about really starting to look at, if you can look at your child every time something comes up as, what do I need to learn from this? You know, what is this about? Where do I come into this? How am I expanding in terms of this? What do I need to learn from what's happening? What part of me is being called to become integrated, right? So I want you to start looking at the parenting in that sense. And if you are having any resistance towards looking at it that way, I want you to let me know what that resistance is, okay? Please send me an email. Let me know what is the resistance, what's holding you back. Again, a lot of the videos that we're entering right now are gonna feel a lot more philosophical or not so technical about what to implement, but it's super important that we get the mindset straight first, because you gotta enter it this way. You have to have these pillars in order for strategies to work. Because if we just, you know, go to the finish line with the strategies, it's not going to work, and you're just gonna take another parenting course or another self-help book. This is not what we want. Let's change it where it needs to be changed at, okay? So again, it's a courageous journey, and it's one that's very difficult because it's asking you a lot of effort actually, and a lot of changing of your belief systems. But again, you know, the definition, what is that? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, right? So if you're here today, it's because something in your parenting needs to shift. And then the last thing that I want you to look at for this week, your last action step is, what can I do today, starting today, that will allow me to become more present and aware with my children, right? Is it taking a deep breath? Sometimes it's a hand gesture, right? Some people have a certain hand gesture that they could do that could remind you of that, your hand on your heart, or, you know, I don't know, squeezing your hands or taking a deep breath, right? Or visualizing someone that you find is somebody that you know that's very wise, having that visual, whatever it is. What is the one step that I can take to become more present and more aware of my parenting with my child, right? In the as-is moment, what could I do? And again, I would love for you guys to send me your answers. I find that this is probably the hardest video to integrate, because this is a big piece. This is really the meat of the whole intentional parenting. And it's a difficult journey. It's not for everyone. I don't think that it's an easy journey, right? But again, we don't want to be parenting by default. That's not what we want. We want to go to a different level, right? I think we owe it to our children, we owe it to our planet, we owe it to make a shift in this world, right? I think that now's the time. We're being called in so many different directions to be able to do that, and I think that it starts at home. So again, thank you for joining me today, and I'm available to you all week. Please feel free to send me any questions, any comments, and I'll see you next week.